Welcome to Thrust, the Dance Made in Canada podcast. We're here to provide intimate insights into the perspectives of Canadian dance artists. We'll talk about why physical expression matters, what it does in our bodies when we experience it, and how it impacts our daily lives. This season, we're looking at legacy, succession planning, and knowledge sharing. Change is inevitable, but how does one prepare for it? When artistic organizations are built on an individual's vision, how do we pass along embodied knowledge and artistic vision? Or do we? Let's ask some of Canada's prominent creators now. Together, Victor Vung Tran and Deanna Peters are co-directors of the Vancouver International Dance Festival. Victor is a Vietnamese-Canadian choreographer whose work bridges street and social dance traditions with experimental stage practices. A breaker, rocker, and hustler, his choreography transposes the freestyle ethos of these forms, drawing from ciphers, clubs, and dialogue with community. Through Now or Never Crew, Victor has upheld a legacy of local street dance shaped by intergenerational mentorship and over 20 years of collaboration, competition, and community building. His practice is informed by deep ties to grassroots spaces where dance thrives as both resistance and joy. Deanna Peters, Mutable Subject, is a dance artist and designer who creates, performs, and DIY produces for the stage, club, gallery, web, and print. Deanna uses the name Mutable Subject because they're always moving and evolving in their decades-spanning career. As a creator of eye-popping and deeply moving dance works, Deanna's known for pushing the boundaries of the form. Diverse training projects keeps Deanna nimble in body and mind, and currently they are being mentored in house dance by Sekou Heru in New York City. Hi, Victor. Hi, Deanna. Welcome to Thrust Podcast.
Ooh,
Hello.
I can feel that.
Yeah, our new name we're launching. So exciting. You have just completed your first season of VidUF. Is that how locals say it?
No, definitely not.
The first season of the Vancouver International Dance Festival. And I'm sure that you're still trying to understand the rhythm of what the festival is and the work that you're doing. How is that sort of calibration going for you today, currently?
Yeah, thanks for having us. So cool to be here. The rhythm of running a festival, it's hard to say because this last festival was our first and we were kind of just thrown into it. And I don't think we're gonna really know the rhythm until we've actually had a full year of to do a festival and then a second iteration. So I feel like we're given a garden and it was in the middle of like spring or something, and now we're finally like feeling like we have an understanding of what was in that garden.
Yeah, no, it's like our first April as festival directors. So yeah, it's hard to get a sense of cycle or rhythm until we get to do another April and or May or whatever. And it was a bit surprising because it was a big push just to mount the festival in 6 months, including programming artists from South Africa, and visas and everything like that. And I think we both anticipated that there would be a rest after the festival, but here we are in early May, and we have written 10 grants since the festival. So, it's we're wondering when that push is over.
Yeah, and it takes a huge amount of stamina because I know you're both artists, practicing artists yourself. So then to both be writing grants for the festival and also for yourselves, that's wild. It's so beautiful when the two of you talk about your shared values and ethos and the way that you advocate both being complementary but also different. And I'm curious because you've talked about intentionally not making the Vancouver International Dance Festival an institution. Why?
I think that, well, this is what I know is that we're just doing what is natural to us,
Mm,
and we we haven't really, worked in an institutional context. Um, and I also know that we were ap appointed these positions because we weren't bringing an institutional, uh, framework. We were bringing this fluidity. We were
mm,
bringing um, uh, eyes and ears on a street level, and yeah, we're bringing something that's very responsive, and I think that's what the festival was needing.
mm,
And I think that, one of the criticisms of structures or institutions in artistic settings is that um, there's some harmful emergent properties,
mm,
properties that are rigid or can be exclusionary. Um, and you start to lose the essence of what you're doing
mm.
when you rely on just too much of a efficiency model, let's say.
Yeah, I guess I could share like through an anecdote. Um, because we are coming with um a lot of experiences, so we're not necessarily looking to learn about how to produce events. We're bringing our style of producing to VIDF. But I was attending another festival just weeks before our before VIDF 2025, and I showed up, and there's all these banners and all this infrastructure. It felt like there's even tables with staff and computers and a box office, that kind of thing. And I started to feel like an imposter syndrome about like how, is VIDF even, is it even going to work? Like, is it going to be a disaster? Just like even just around something like box office, because we're just gonna check people's names off when they come in to the space, and we don't have a staff. Like, oh, like, do we actually have the experience to do this? And so I came back, I came home and I called Victor, and we chatted about it, and he was just like, yeah, no, we just need to try it, and we need to stick to our guns, and we need to do the way what we know, and we don't need to try to adopt what everyone else is doing, because so I think it's not so much about not wanting to be an institution, because people will, it's semantic. I think it's just about being a different type of institution. And I think that like, we don't not you don't have to do things status quo. Like, isn't that the point of being an artist in a way? um and I think also the fact that we are practicing artists ourselves, and that is our main driving ethos, is that we are able to relate to the artists who we are supporting and who our organization is designed to support. And we can do that through extremely empathetic, non hierarchical means. We also acknowledge what we don't know, and that some of these artists that we're working with, Helen Sama, for example, they're coming in with so much experience, like we're following their lead. And so I think that it's that we're learning from them. We're learning what our like what our points of view are going to be, and what a privilege it is to be in relationship with literally hundreds of our peers.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear you articulate that. This August witnessed bold new choreography in its rawest form. Video Cabaret presents Mighty Dances in a Small Space, an evening of powerful contemporary works by Jara Wolfe and Peggy Baker, two of the most dynamic voices in Canadian dance. In a space where every breath, every step, every shift matters, experience performances by Mieko Ferguson, Catherine Semchuk, and Jara Wolf himself, with sound design by Julianne Anderson Bose, lighting by Gabriel Cropley, and an audience up close. This is dance stripped down to its essentials, visceral, immediate, and unforgettable. Join us at 10 Busy Street, Leslieville. Friday, August 15th at 8 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, August 16th and 17th at 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Part of Video Cabaret's 50th anniversary season. Tickets and more at videocab.com. Small space, big ideas. The way that you are responsive to both your community, your peers, the artists that you're working with, and audiences. And I'm curious, like Victor, you said that like your point of view was what the festival needed. And I want to flip that for a moment and ask you, like, what have you inherited in the way that like you were a vision that the festival needed to move forward? What, in your mind, does the festival hold that you are now engaging with, both positive or negative?
Operating funding?
Yeah, and along with that are these kind of um, huge sets of responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the if we're just talking about the operational funding, um, you know, in a way, we are not precious about many things, but we are precious about uh, the where that money is going and making sure that most of that money is going directly to artists. And so we're inheriting this I feel I've inherited this kind of scale that makes it challenging to be very efficient um in our spending in a way that like we would have in a smaller production. Um, you know, like less insurance, let's say, for example.
Yeah.
Um, but so then how do you like so now where I feel like I have to really kind of find my way around, or we are finding our way around to cut all these additional costs where we can so that we can still bring on uh, an international caliber uh, festival while also fulfilling our mandates to support primarily artists through the financial means, and then still making it accessible to everybody. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of responsibility inside of leadership and infrastructure, especially the way that you two talk about being so value centered. I can imagine that sometimes that is completely at odds with one another, and having to fit yourself inside of that is complicated. In what ways do you feel like you support each other through those hard moments?
I'll jump in and just say like Deanna helps me stay true true to myself and true to my values. um I believe maybe through school or something I have this tendency to try to be a, I don't know, like a teacher's pet or something, or like be a good student.
Mm,
Um, when that actually does a disservice to myself and to my art and to my colleagues. And so Deanna helps me like resist what, especially when we get into a bigger production like this, help me resist the temptation to like maybe follow a certain undercode and just to actually be like, yo, what your experience is why you're here and why it's needed and why it's valuable. Like you don't need to, yeah, conform to anything else. So, yeah, he helps me stay true.
mm,
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the question of like the lineage, I, I'm from Saskatchewan, and I'd say it's like a protest sort of culture,
mhm,
Um, everyone will be sitting around a diner drinking coffee and, complaining about the cost of this and, and so, it's I kind of come from like a grumble culture a little bit, it feels like. And I would say, Jay and Barbara led VIDF with that energy, that protest energy, that we thankfully have a culture that's looking towards diversity, now, but what Jay was facing at Canada Council in what would it have been 2000 was very different. Sometimes he was the only racialized person that would be receiving funding, or and yeah, so there's a lineage there that I really respect, is like work that is grounded in lived experience. And we're not doing it in the same way, but it is a value of ours too. You to really be looking at people's connection to the forms and the cultures that they are, let's say, working in to represent, um, yeah, their expression. Is
Yeah.
that an authentic? Is there an authentic connection there? Um, and so, yeah, I feel like VIDF already has developed a reputation for programming works that are on the cusp, of pushing societal issues, and yeah.
It's interesting, Deanna, to hear you say the term like grumble culture, because I often think about how do our experiences of culture shape the way that we engage in the world as artists, and like the two of you talk a lot about generative dismantling, and for me, there's kind of there's a similarity between grumble culture and generative dismantling, and I'm curious. If you make those connections for yourself of your upbringing and your artistic ethos.
Hmm. Well, I this seems so idiosyncratic and personal maybe, but I often wondered, like, where does our agency come from?
Mm,
Um and you know, I don't know the answer to that question, but I see people trying to find their agency in multiple different ways. And I think what Victor was describing about being given a bit of agency to be more himself in his work. And I'm not really sure exactly how to answer that question, because also it's like this, I see it as a really complex shape,
yeah.
to get to this point. So it's really hard to kind of say it, say one thing or two things that sort of represent that, those intersections. And how are we shaped, like, is it these one-off little moments and these experiences? But I would say that, I guess, what I know about myself now is that I am reactive, and I do process often through negativity, like,
Mm.
my first answer is actually to kind of say no, and then I kind of adjust around, right? So, Victor's kind of saying, oh, I'm a yes man, so, there's an interesting balance there. And I go to Victor to soundboard things, like, are my feelings justified? Is my rage justified? Is my
Mm,
frustration justified? How do we shape this so that it maybe, because I don't always get the best responses from people, maybe, like, in the way that I approach things. So it also helps things be, yeah, be more inclusive to other people and their views.
Yeah, and in turn, me and I have found this to be uh, a challenge is, yeah, having that tendency to be a yes person and quote unquote be too nice
mm,
in all those situations. But there is a high level of criticism that's going on in my head, but I often um uh I guess I'm just trying to be keeping the peace, let's say, diplomatic or whatnot. And I turned to Deanna to talk about our experiences because they offer a level of criticality that often is aligned with me and then helps me speak it.
Mm.
Whereas often I would be too afraid to speak that.
There's something that I'm piecing together from a couple of the last things that we've been talking about. And it's the way that you talk about bringing artists forward that are on the cusp or who are on the fringes. And then you're also talking about your critical lens and the way that the two of you engage with the community. And then I also know that you don't necessarily like to refer to yourselves as curators, but I'm interested in how you make programming choices, to use different language that maybe means something really similar, for the way that you shape an experience for people attending your festival.
Well, first, I think on the curator front, on the curation aspect, I coming from my background in street dance, I don't like that's a fairly new word
Mhm.
for me. So, um, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable to, call myself a curator because as I'm learning, that is a specialized, highly specialized practice and skill and experience that I think is drawn from like in academic spaces, and is a legit practice. So I can't say something I'm not. But it is confusing because in our work, in our programming work, there is an aspect of curation. So there is to some degree you are curating, but I wouldn't say I am a curator. I definitely feel much more comfortable saying what I am, which is a presenter that
Mm.
has an aspect of curation in the work. Um, and as I'm learning that term is also can be controversial or it's a loaded term. So I just want to be respectful for all the you know cur- curators. um,
Yeah, and it's kind of ironical, right? Because now it's like you curate your living room, you curate your schedule, it's just one of those buzzwords that gets drawn, pulled into the system and loses its meaning. Um, and regarding the programming and the fringes, and we've been doing everything on the fly up until this point, right? Like, I remember the first week we came on, like the very first day we came on, we had a production meeting with the Roundhouse, and nothing has been programmed, at least, but we're just thrown right into it. And I remember we are keeping this document because like we work remotely, so we work online, and so we have a lot of shared documents where I'll see, we'll be in a meeting, but Victor will be like writing something in the document, and like I'll be going in there, and we're writing our policies, just right there. We did a call to artists, and we were fortunate enough to be able to work with Michelle Olson of Raven Spirit Dance, just to bring in, like we wanted things to be transparent. We wanted for the festival to feel accessible. Also calls to artists were things that was a familiar way for us, with like producing past festivals and things like that. So Michelle helped us, like, we're looking at works and we're like, is this what we program? Is this what we
Mm.
program? And we're asking, the three of us, like, why isn't this something that we program? And we really came up with more solidified values. And I love working with documents. Like I really like having, whether it's a contract or a community agreement or a manifesto or
Mm.
something that is, it's not about us, it's about the work, the organization, it's about the festival. So, it's not us saying no, it's the festival saying no. And these are the reasons why. And so it's really nice when, like we can just look at the document and be like, is this what we program? And it's like, no, that's not what we program. Uh, so we have three words that we use, and they actually are words that have continued on from previous VIDFs. which are raw, kinetic, and experimental. And so we'll watch a video and we'll be like, oh, it's raw. Yeah. It's experimental. Okay, it's not kinetic. So then it's not that everything has to fit all three. it's sometimes it's like, no, it's okay to have one work that isn't as kinetic, as others or whatever. So I like having those structures, and they're, we give ourselves, like, we allow those to evolve as well. Yeah.
As a sort of like closing, as we sort of come to a moment of ending that never ends, I wanted to come back to this theme of legacy and succession. And I'm curious if, having one cycle under your belts, if you have a question that you want to ask each other.
Victor, how do you define contemporary dance?
It wasn't until learning more about choreography and different dance practices and performance, um, and yeah, just realizing that contemporary dance, if you just actually just look at the word, just means now, and that anything that is being created now is contemporary. So I guess my question to Deanna is, what is or how do you define street dance?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's like all dance, right? Rooted in lineages, cultural lineages. Street dance wasn't the beginning of something. It's a continuation of cultural gatherings, social gatherings, and the knowledge that is created through human gatherings, music, and movement. You know, it's embedded into our life, our lifestyles. If you know, it's it's embedded in place. It's specific in place, and it's communicated. It's communicated via movement. You're in a club, so now we're expanding. It's not really street dance, but let's say adjacent. You're in a club, and just having that experience of somebody recognizing what you're saying, right? You never speak, but they recognize what you're saying. They come up to you, you communicate, you're like, yeah, I know this. Oh, I know this too. Like, this is where I'm coming from. And we share a language, and there's like a familial kind of feel to that. You're welcomed into a community, you're welcomed into a family. It's like a secret handshake in a way, right? It's like, just to kind of signal where we're at. And it doesn't mean taking the stage and having to be the focus. I feel like street dance culture allows people, it's like, allows people to be at different radiating connections, out. So the whole is what creates that opportunity for that expression, that individual expression, that might be in the center of the cipher, and how that then morphs and shifts, and yeah, that fluidity.
Yeah, it's beautiful and meaningful to hear the two of you talk about how your lived experience is embedded into the leadership model that you are undertaking together. It is so unique, and I feel so elated to get to be a part of our industry where this kind of change is happening. So I wanted to thank you both for your raw, kinetic, and experimental energies in this space, for all that you've shared. Leadership models are in constant flux. Since recording this episode, VIDF has entered a new transition phase. This interview captures a moment in time, and the values expressed by Victor and Deanna continue to be alive in their work in and outside of the organization. Visit vidf.ca for updates and to continue to follow along their leadership journeys. Thanks for tuning into Thrust, the Dance Made in Canada podcast. Thrust is presented by Dance Made in Canada Fête au Canada Festival, a biennial dance festival featuring dance artists from across Turtle Island with unique artistic visions from diverse backgrounds. We acknowledge that this land, colonially known as Canada, has been the site of dance for many millennia. We are grateful for the ability to dance and celebrate on Turtle Island. Thrust is produced by Mayumi Lashbrook and Taylor Zalek Young, editor and composer Jamar Powell, sound engineer Chris Dupuis at 1990 Studios, and cover photography by Marlo Porter. And I'm your host, Aria Evans. Thank you to our funders, Canadian Heritage, the Canada Council for the Arts, Ontario Arts Council, and Toronto Arts Council, and our donors and individual donors. We couldn't do this without their constant support. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to rate and review. Let dance transform you.